Thank you very much for coming today. I
Mhm.
really appreciate that.
Of course.
Um, it's interesting. Today was like most people who responded. Tonight was the best night that they had, and so it's interesting that only one person's showing up. If if things if things change and we've got to shift it to tomorrow night at 7:30, is that going to be a real damper on your schedule?
uh, to Wednesday night at 7:30.
Right.
No, that should be fine.
Okay. Because that's what I may do. And when everybody in the class does watch watch the recording,
Hmm.
please check and make sure if 7:30 on Wednesday night is better, and email me right away. Okay. The things I wanted to cover tonight is um, the house or the sculpture-based photography it says it's due on Sunday, and we are going to be reviewing them next week's class so that the people who didn't get all the points they want, you can resubmit, but we will need those turned in. And somebody reminded me in this class that I had said I would email everybody when the kits came in, and I thought we talked about that last week, so I spaced it. The kits are in. They're in room 519 of the Gunther building. And when you go in those main doors, turn immediately to the right, and they are there along the wall. And there's a yellow paper to put your name and information on. Um, Only about a third of the people in the class have picked up their kits. Since the first project is due on Sunday, it's probably a good idea to grab them. I would recommend that very highly.
Okay.
Have you already gotten your kit?
Uh-huh. I got it last Friday.
All right, excellent. There is a lot of stuff in it, and it's not designed to be everything you might want to need for this class, but
Mhm.
it is more than enough to do everything you've got to do, and then you add your own texture and color,
Okay.
essentially.
Sounds good.
And it's designed to give you the tools and the fundamental basics to do the class. Excuse me. So a couple of the things that I wanted to talk about today is I want to show people um, my view of Canvas. I don't know how different yours is as a student. Let's see. Oh, it does kind of frustrate me. I don't have full functionality in screen share, and it's kind of hard to control. So,
Mm.
um, oh well. You basically are seeing what I'm seeing.
It
Okay,
looks.
so hopefully this looks pretty similar to what you guys have.
Yeah, it looks pretty similar.
Okay, and um, I'm gonna, you can go ahead and publish these things so you see what's coming up. But I want people to pay attention to these dates. Last week I talked about this a little bit. A lot of these dates, the computer automatically populates them, and I want you guys to go through and look at stuff. If it seems like things are a little bit too close together, let me know. Because what we're doing is we have these 7 project modules. So we have 6 physical projects, and then module 7 is artist research or service learning, and you notice that that is divided up, and each of these are due about a month apart. Each of these things, with the last thing due, 7 point D, like right before the end of the term. And if we need to move that back a week, we can do that too. That's fine. But um, that's why it's spaced out, because there are different elements of the project that just take time, and I found that it's a lot more polite to do it this way than to force everybody to work on it immediately or all at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's why that's spaced out. Then another thing that's spaced is applying the tools of artistic critique. This is something that everybody needs to be familiar with. This is one of the bedrock fundamentals for this class. And I have this right here. It probably should be up here a little bit more. So you see that right at maybe even higher. But you'll notice that nothing is due until November. These things aren't due until November. The reason why this should be earlier, I want people to read this and become familiar with it because you are going to start applying it in some of these discussion spots. Like in this, the first discussion, we go there, and this deals directly with chapter 1 and chapter 2 of the book, where it talks about the 9 different ways of involving the viewer. I don't remember the page numbers, but it's a significant section of the book, and I think it's in chapter 1. I'm not entirely sure.
It is in chapter 1. I was reading it today.
Okay, and you can tell the 9 ways of involving the viewer are picked out because they are paragraph headings that are in bold typeface, and that's how you find them. And there are 9 of them. But what in the discussions, we're going to have several different discussions that people post stuff to get full points. In about half the discussions, you're going to have to apply the tools of artistic critique. And in this, they are switched around a little bit so that you are making intentional observations in direct relationship to what we are trying to accomplish with this first module. And that does vary. Uh, um, so let's see, if we go to discussion 2, whenever my computer catches up with what my mouse did. So in module 1, the discussion is you have to give a 45-minute response to each of 3 different images that you see, or 3 different people's inputs that you see. So you'll first plug in your pictures of your house, and then you'll go back and respond using those prompts to the pictures from 3 other people in the class. So that's what that discussion is. But we go to module 2, and for this discussion, I believe that all we're doing is you just post your work, and that's it. So you get full points just for posting your work on that one. And so the discussions do vary. And as we get closer to the end of the semester, like if we go way down, I think it's module 5, when you let's see, or the carving module 4, when you do that, you're going to have to do a little bit more discussion. And module 6, you're going to have to do a little bit more discussion as well. Not very much, but when we get down to the very final revisit of one of your sculptures, on that discussion, then you apply the full tools of artistic critique on it. And notice that is due right before finals week. So it just kind of progresses through the course of the semester. And the reason why this is so important, we're using Feldman's model of artistic critique. It's so important because as a professional artist, it really helps to be able to not only speak intelligently about your own work, but also be able to communicate intelligently with regarding other people's work that you see. And in no point in these critiques of stuff in the class am I going to be asking any of you to tell people how they could change their work to make it better. And one of the reasons for that is trauma from my early college career, but also you have no way of knowing, or nobody else has any way of knowing what's going on inside of your head when you're doing something. And the only way that telling somebody how to change their stuff to make it better, the only way that could actually be of any practical value in this class is if you shared my brain and you knew exactly what the module was trying to get us to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do a critique of somebody else's work, these are the tools to follow. And it's just, there are 4 different tools: description, analysis, interpretation, and evaluation. And what I've noticed is this is a problem that intelligent people have, which means it's a problem that all of you guys are going to have. it is very difficult to separate these out. And the reason is your brain is working so fast that when you start describing things, while you're describing, you're thinking of all the associations that could be attributed to the elements you're describing. And it starts messing this system up because you want to analyze and interpret while you're describing. And so one of the struggles that people have when they first start doing this is controlling how they express what they're thinking by limiting what comes out to just these four headings in succession. And there is a specific reason for that. Um, I don't. Many people are not aware. Do you know how long Western culture has had the idea of the word for blue?
Mhm.
The word for blue has only been around for about 2,500 years. The color
Well,
blue has been around for almost 14 billion years. Right after the heat birth of the universe, the color blue was one of the radiation emanations that just happens. And we know that people did worked with blue before 2,500 years ago because the Egyptians used blue in their fiance. They used Babylonians used blue in a lot of the work that they did, like the Gates of Ishtar, and the Etruscans painted everything they could get their hands on blue. But it only shows up for the first time in Greek writing about 2,500 years ago. Before then, people would describe blue, what we think of as blue today, as being dark or bright, and they wouldn't use a word for blue. But now, 2,500 years later, just in the English language, we have like hundreds of words for blue. Everything from cyan to cerulean, and everything in between. It's and when and another example of this line of thought that I'm kind of diving into is babies are born with essentially two emotions. They're either satisfied or unsatisfied. And parents can work themselves to exhaustion trying to get unsatisfied triggered to satisfied. It just, I mean, that's the way it is. But the moment that children start being able to express themselves, that vocabulary of expression expand for emotions expands exponentially. Unsatisfied becomes hungry, sad, disappointed, hurting, all sorts of things. Satisfied becomes happy, full, comfortable, warm, and all sorts of things. By the time they're teenagers, their emotional vocabulary has expanded yet again exponentially. Um, and as we grow into adulthood, I think a lot of people find that the more precise we can be about recognizing those separate emotions for our own selves, the more mentally healthy we become because we're more precise in our understanding of ourselves and of other people. Those two things come together with the idea that as we are working on this process of critique, the more precise we are with our big person grown up words, not only does it help us to communicate better, but it also helps our brains to act with greater precision. And when Heidegger, who's kindest and gentlest of all the Nazi philosophers, said that the moment we choose to use a word, we've also chosen to not use 10,000 other words.
hmm.
And even though we're using words with precision, part of that is helping us to decide how to think about something because we're also recognizing that other words are not being used. And if it doesn't feel right or if it doesn't feel appropriate, if it's not quite right with how we want to express, we'll change our language to more fully and adequately express what we're trying to communicate. That's so I'm going to share my screen again, going back to this. But that is all the lead up to, let's see, this idea. So when we describe something using this model, we want to divorce our emotions and our attributions and our assumptions as much as possible from the description. We want to remove our access to our own worldview as much as we can. We want to describe this thing as dispassionately as possible and as accurately as possible because we are generating a visual vocabulary, hopefully a precise vocabulary that we can build everything else upon. So we talk about things like height, width, and depth, of course, the colors, the style. If there's a recognizable style, um, we can even stretch it a little bit into describing how our eye flows across it a little bit. How does it reflect the light? How does it generate shadows? What are the kinds of materials that we can identify, or what do the materials look like? In the quiz for this first two chapters, one of the questions asked is, what are the two extremes of material choice for sculpture? And those two extremes are making something more of what it is, and the other extreme is moving something completely away from what it is. Like, for example, Brian Christensen at BYU, one of my favorite sculptures of his is a pair of, they look like rubber flip flops, but they're made with traditional ceramics. And, but they look so real that you cannot tell they aren't rubber flip flops until you touch them. And that's the, the second extreme. And so description, whether or not we know what the materials are, we talk about what it looks like they are. Is it shiny? What are the textures being involved? Is it aged? Does the artist make it look older? And I think one of the things that's important about this is when we go to start describing something, when we look at a piece of art, the assumption that we should make is everything we see is done on purpose by the artist. There's a couple artists that I like. One of them is a guy named James Thurber, which anybody over 25 probably knows who that person is. But James Thurber does these scribble drawings that look like they're done in a hurry. And when I first saw them, I thought, oh, what a waste of time. It just looks sloppy. But that's part of the frenetic energy he puts into it. You look at Pablo Picasso's sketch of Don Quixote, and yeah, it looks a little bit sloppy and unfinished. But when you step back and look at the emotion he's trying to convey, everything he did was exactly and precisely on purpose. And so when we describe something, we make the assumption this person did it on purpose. And we do as well as we can not to overlay any of our own assumptions onto what we see. We're just talking about what we see. For analysis, this is where we try to figure out what the artist has done to make this. How did they make it? And also, how did they put it together? How did they organize it? This is where we talk about principles of design. Is it balanced? Is it a formal balance? Is it an informal balance? Are they generating rhythms with what they've made? Is the line quality present that looks like it's trying to communicate something or successfully communicating something? So on this one description, we are trying to divorce our emotions and our imagination from it entirely. For analysis, we start opening that door, trying to guess how the artist did what they did. Again, making with the primary assumption that everything we see was on purpose. Now with those two things, we have this vocabulary list for the description. We're using precise language and what we're seeing. When we get to interpretation, this really depends. Your successful interpretation really depends on a high quality, precise analysis and description. Because in the interpretation, this is where we apply a lot of our imagination. We start thinking about if the artist was right in front of me, what would they tell me about their work? What kind of symbolism are they using? Or is there symbolism? What kind of emotional flavor is behind the work. This is where we start getting into meaning and things like this. And the reason why I say that it's so important to be precise in our language for description and analysis, by the time we get to this part, we want to be able to defend what we are saying as our interpretation with the precise observations we've made in our analysis and description. And nobody's going to be attacking us. Nobody's going to be cross-examining us. The defense that I'm talking about is in the old Greek version of an argument, where a defense is essentially statements to support your perspective and your point of view. And that's what we're talking about. We're using analysis and description to support how we are interpreting the work. And this may also, you can bring in things like uh, what do you think the background of the artist is? Where did they work? Does their tool choice and materials choice, does that have anything to do with the potential interpretation? All those things come into it because you're pouring even more of your imagination into this, but it's valid, I believe, because you're building it on the precise language you developed when you did your description and analysis. And then finally, in the evaluation, this is where you can ask yourself questions like, well, ultimately, is it successful? What does that mean? Success does not always mean the person can sell it for something. Success may mean it got you emotionally invested in it. It got you interested in it. It opened your eyes. It made you see, at the very least, that maybe there is another worldview that is every bit as valid as yours. Or maybe it puts something into a completely different perspective for you that you had never considered before. And this evaluation is almost entirely you, but you talk about it using the language and ideas you developed and clarified from these three steps. And we want to use our big person words. And this is why I keep saying precise. We want to be as precise as possible. There are many thousands of words in the English language, and everybody taking this class is incredibly intelligent. I don't think you can be a professional artist or an artist of any caliber without being really intelligent. And by using precise vocabulary, you're able to communicate that appropriately. And it's very important. We can't watch this. I used to like to watch this in the classes. I want everybody to go to this video and watch it. That was last week's video. I hope everybody watched it. It doesn't hurt to watch it several times. And the reason I can't show it is because YouTube dings me on a copyright violation. Even though Smart History, they design their things and mark them for YouTube as being acceptable to use in academic settings. I still get dinged for it. But did you watch that last week?
I did. Uh-huh.
What was the most um, interesting thing that, or not most interesting, maybe one of the more surprising things from that conversation that you heard?
I don't know. It was just interesting to see the different ways that they could interpret it. Like for the majority of the time, they talk about how it looks like a female kind of lounging, and I could see that. And then until they pointed out certain things, like where they thought maybe the head or the face might be, or the fact that she might have 3 breasts or things like that, just probably I don't know if I would have noticed all of them without hearing how they said it.
To be completely honest, when I first saw some of Robert Moore's stuff years ago, it made me nauseated. I did not like his stuff whatsoever. Same thing with Pablo Picasso. I got motion sick whenever I saw any of his stuff. It just really bothered me. And one thing I really like about that video is just like what you're describing, they were very careful. They went through all these 4 steps, right down the line. And it's very clear that they did. And I love that. And what I enjoyed was they start talking about the texture and the color and the strings being laid in and those kinds of things. And then they start talking about, could this be a hand? Look at those shapes. What are they related to?
Mm.
You know, what is going on here? And then by the time you get to it, I imagine this landscape where this thing is lounging and reacting to the air around it and the environment, and becomes it goes from an ugly thing I'm seeing in a museum to something that I really kind of had fun thinking about.
Mhm.
It was, and I thought that was pretty remarkable. And I
Yeah.
think that um, several years ago, I remember coming across an article, and I don't remember what the piece of art the person was talking about. I generally do not like reading what art critics have to say about anything because it's a job that was invented specifically to waste people's time.
Hmm.
That's my thought. And like Clement Greenberg, the only thing I really appreciate about him is that he managed in the 50s to invent a job that didn't exist and make himself invaluable for it. I just but what this person was going into an exhibit or an art auction, and they were trying to go in as an observer and they were trying to just share with their reading audience how normal people interacted with art. And there was this piece of work that he did not think too highly of going into this auction. And he noticed it caused a bidding. People were arguing about it before the bidding started. And by the time the bidding was done, this thing that he thought was a piece of garbage sold for an incredible amount of money. And afterwards, he asked if the person who bought it, if he could just talk to him for a minute. The guy said, sure. And he said, why did you buy this artwork? Or no, he didn't start with that. He said, what is it that you like about this artwork? And he said, I don't particularly like it. Well, what drew you to it? He said, I'm not really drawn to it. Well, then why on earth did you get it? He said, because if it can make so many people get emotionally invested in its presence and argue and talk with each other, there is something to it that I must be missing. And in the future, it's going to be worth something. And I thought that's really an interesting take
Yeah.
on art. I sometimes things may only have value because they force people into a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, and then they do have value. They have value because they force people into a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, I prefer things that may not have to have. You may not have to be fully aware of the social uh, context to be able to enjoy it. You know, it's something that you respond to emotionally. I prefer things like that, but when we talk about evaluating something, there's lots of ways that something can have value, and that was the whole point of that little um, side quest diatribe there. So
Yeah.
that's what that assignment is about, or that module is about. And the module again, the module's title is applying the tools of artistic critique. And if you look at it, there are two assignments, both due on November 6th. The reason why we're not doing them until November 6th is because you are going to be looking at people's work in the discussions. Because after every time somebody finishes a project, you post it in the discussion, and half of them you respond to. But you're going to be looking at that and then find somebody else's work to critique. And this critique is a verbal critique. You have a video that goes on for 3 to 5 minutes. I have a link to a playlist inside of that module or inside of the assignment so you can see what other people have done. But what you're going to be doing is spending 3 to 5 minutes looking at this piece of artwork that you saw in the discussion. So, something by a student in this class this semester. And you're just going to be running down those 4 tools of artistic critique. And then you're going to do the same thing with your own work too. You know, one of
Do
your own works you did for this class. What's that?
do we do the three critiques? You said it needs to be 45 minutes. Do we do them consecutively, or do we need to send you three separate videos?
Oh no, you're only making 2 videos.
Oh, I thought you said three. Okay.
Um, there's about, I think there's like 3 written critiques that you do in the discussions
Okay.
of the projects, and like one is 45 words long, and I think one is 60 words long, and then one is like 80 words long or something like that. And you do them each for 3 different people. That's just in the discussions. These 2 critiques that I'm talking about that are at the end of the term are you select one of your own works to critique and then one of the works that you see in class to critique.
Okay.
This is where you do the full, and you just do one object of each one. So the 3 you're referring to is responding to 3 other people in the discussions. And then
Okay.
these 2 assignments I'm talking about are completely separate from that.
Okay.
Does that make it a little bit more clear?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. So we can look at that. There we go. Okay. All right. So in the discussions, each of the modules 1 through 6, have a discussion element.
Hmm.
And the discussions, some of them you are going to be responding to other people. Like in this one, you respond with 45 words to 3 other people's work. And in the defining or in module 2, this isn't going to be discussion. You're just sharing your work. Module 3, you're just sharing your work again. So it's not the discussion. These 2 icons mean it's a discussion, but the your assignment is just to post your stuff, and that's it. Then
Okay.
in module 4, you are responding to other people, and and each of those times where you see the discussion where you have to respond, you're responding to 3 other people. So that's it within the modules. And then when I'm talking about applying the tools of artistic critique, that's when you have one assignment where you're critiquing your own work and one assignment where you're critiquing somebody else's work. And this is a video, 3 to 5 minute video, where you're just showing a static image of the artwork you're critiquing, and you go down the steps verbally, 1 through 4, discussion, analysis, interpretation, and evaluation of that work that you're showing on the screen.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for asking about that. I hope that clears it up.
Yeah. I cleared it up. Thank you.
Now on this quiz, I see that somebody's already taken it. This is the quiz I was telling you was problematic. It's supposed to be a direct response to the tools of artistic critique. I'm going to
Hmm.
have to revamp it because there are some issues with it. I cannot put on a due date. I mean, it keeps kicking it off. So I'm going to try to fix that this week. If you did already take the quiz, whoever's done that already, I will see that, and um, it's going to be the same quiz, so I will reapply the points after I fix this. So this means that a couple people have already taken that quiz. So that I'll take care of that. Now, several people have said, "Oh no, I can't do anything on module 1 because I don't have my book." Actually, no, that's not true. Very few people have. Almost everybody whose book is delayed has said, "I don't think I'm going to be able to get my quiz done before Sunday. Can I please have an extension?" And one thing that really frustrates me is, in good faith, you guys have bought your book, and you've bought it from companies like eBay and um, other places that have said, yes, we'll get it to you by August 29th or whatever. And then once you go through the paywall, they say, by the way, it won't get there until the following Wednesday. Well, that's frustrating to me because you guys are buying it in good faith. And if your book is not going to be coming, do not worry about this. I usually the day after something is due, I'll go through and post zeros for things that aren't submitted. All that means is I'm triggering Canvas to remind you about the assignment. As soon as you get your book, you let me know. Go ahead and take the quiz, and it will be fine. You will not be docked any points whatsoever once you take the quiz. So I hope everybody understands that. It is a pain in the neck sometimes getting the books, but you guys are saving on average at least $65 a person, because that would be how much more they would cost if we had to get them through the campus bookstore.
I got mine through Thrift Book for like $11.
Oh, that is awesome. Did that include shipping?
Um, now I can't remember. I think it did. And
That is
then
incredible.
it shipped the time that it said it would. So
Okay, good. Yeah, when you get it, after you get it, go ahead and take that quiz. Everything else you should be able to do pretty well. Like the background, this is all self-contained. In the artist review, you're writing 3 paragraphs directly related to the background. This is something that's really important to remember. All the artist reviews are a direct response to the backgrounds within that same module. And I believe they all say that. The reason I say that is that every year, so that's what, one out of every 75 students or so, somebody's going to say, or going to do an artist review responding to people that they saw in the textbook. And in each of the artist review assignments, I say refer to the background artists. And again, the background artists are the 5 to 8 people that write, that are like right here, like Andy Goldsworthy, Sandy Skoglund, all those people. And then when you go to the artist review, it is these 3 paragraph prompts directly associated with the artist. Now it does say, please identify the 4 methods used in chapter 1, or at least 4 methods used to involve the viewer. If that is something that bothers you and you don't want to do it, then hold off doing this. Don't do it yet, and just let me know. Say, hey, I know this is in chapter 1 in the textbook. I don't have my textbook yet. Can I do this after I get it? Absolutely, that's fine. Like I said last week, I've never turned down a request for an extension, and I understand books are on their way, and not everybody's gotten them yet. And that's, just let me know. So if you don't feel comfortable doing the artist review yet, don't worry. Then don't do it yet. Just let me know. But all the artist review things, it's just a short paragraph, just to validate that you have seen the artist in the background, and you just follow the prompts. And and when people do this, sometimes what they've done is just copied these prompts out and written a paragraph underneath each of them. Now, for our class, the AI policy again is, AI is a useful tool, but use it to help you organize things. Don't use it to replace your thinking. And the easiest way, if there's doubts about it, if somebody is claiming to you that they didn't use AI, just ask them to share with you what they talked about and whatever it is they did. And if they can't explain it, then that's a good indicator they probably used AI. So I have had students that have ADHD and they like using AI to help organize their thoughts and generate an outline, and that's totally fine. But this is a pretty good outline here. And a paragraph is 3 to 5 sentences long. Right there, 3 to 5 sentences.
okay.
And this is just like those danger tags on furniture. I'm saying these things because people have asked me about them in the past. It's like, for once, I'd like to see the little safety tags on furniture just be completely honest. Like things like, danger, this couch is over 70 pounds, and it's been validated in laboratory tests that any weight of over 70 pounds, when dropped on somebody's foot, causes significant nerve damage. I'd love to see that at some point. Right now, a lot of people are working on this, but they haven't done it completely. Um, there are some things to read, like this is a reading, this is a reading, this is watching the video. Uh, the artist research or service learning, what is interesting to me is that people have started turning in these assignments without doing this. And I want to show you something really quick. We're going to go to artist research option. If we go all the way down, or if we go to my edit screen, right down here, we go all the way to the bottom, there's names of people in the class. Okay. And the people in the class, if you are doing the artist research, you'll be responsible for the assignments labeled artist research. If you're doing service learning, you'll only be responsible for the assignments labeled service learning. And so when you go to this particular page, I'm sorry, this particular assignment, which is artist research or service learning, on this one, this is where you just say, I'm going to be doing artist research, I'm going to be doing service learning. Now, only about a third of the people in the class have responded to this, but more than that have done the other assignments. The problem is, if you haven't responded to this, you're going to see 3 or 4 extra assignments that you don't need to be doing. And so I recommend everybody. What's that?
But I think I did that, but now I'll have to go back and look.
You did submit this.
Okay.
And I went through and I removed all the other assignments from your, the other assignments that you didn't need to do, because I believe you chose artist research. And so I removed the 4 service learning assignments from your list.
Okay.
And so there's that name, that the list of names associated with who needs to do what, and it is really important just to get that filled out as soon as you can, and then you're going to see 3 or 4 assignments disappear right away. So in this first module, the artist research option is you're going through this artist list and picking one person to research more, and you're sharing that in a discussion so that we don't get 4 people doing the same artist. And if you've chosen the service learning option, which somebody has, there's this reflection exercise I have you go through where it talks about your skill set and who you can talk about and what you might be interested in doing. And we do have somebody who is going to be, we do have at least one person doing this out of those 6 folks, which is nice. Usually we get about a quarter of the class wants to do the service learning. And that's always exciting to me. Because you got everybody in this class, all of you are professional artists, all of you have a unique skill set that is really valuable. And the people that are able to find a connection and do service learning for somebody in the community, that always, it turns out really cool. I think one of the best experiences I've seen, or one of the best service learning projects that I've seen over the last several years teaching is one guy, he just about gave up. He was so sick and tired because he'd actually contacted 3 different people who at the last moment, all 3 of them said, we've gone in a different direction, which is so dumb because you're supplying your time and your intelligence for free. Why wouldn't they want to take advantage of that? And it was the last couple of weeks. And he just said, should I just go ahead and do the artist research and do all that? And we were talking about it. And I said, well, just see if you can brainstorm and find something else to do. And just, think about it for a day. They get back to me and we'll figure out what to do. So that night, he just went for a walk and he found one of his neighbors was a retired veteran. And the guy was living by himself, but he had chickens in his backyard. His backyard was overgrown and the chickens were wild. So what this guy did is he designed a sculptural chicken coop and then corralled about 6 or 7 of his neighbors to help him build this sculptural chicken coop in this guy's backyard. And that was his service project. And I thought, how cool is that? It was awesome.
That's cool.
So and people have done created a sequence of video lessons for um, there's the Cove Point retirement community. Somebody also did a series of video lessons. They made several different lessons, but they tried to do it for art projects that would take about 3 to 5 minutes to make, and they did that for a memory assisted living place in Utah County. And so there's a lot, and then several people have worked with the different academies um, in the area as well, doing different kinds of things. And that's, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff that people have done. So I'm excited to see the person who's done this, who is doing the first person who's decided to do this. I'm interested. I'm really excited to see what they come up with. What is very cool is that UVU is one of the top six schools in the country for this kind of thing, the service learning um, projects, for
Oh,
service learning in general. Anyway, so that's what that is. So everybody who can, we have only 6 people have done this. We need everybody else. Declare artist, research, or service learning, and then you will see the 3 or 4 assignments from the other branch disappear after you tell me which one. And this is our next project. You guys, when you get your book, you can go ahead and take the quizzes and work ahead. But I think for this, I do want to talk about this a little bit more. And one thing that I would like to do is just talk through the quiz a little bit. And Andrea, I know that you don't have your book yet, but I think we
I
still
do.
can. Oh, you do?
Hmm.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said that it had been shipped and that you had not
Oh,
received.
no, I got it last year and then the
Oh,
class
that's
was
right. That's
canceled.
right. Okay.
Um, but that's what I used when I did purchase it. I do have it if you would like me to go grab it.
No, don't worry about it. I want to go through this and just kind of show. I think I touched on this a little bit last week, but I just want to talk about this. Is each of the quizzes have very different point sets and point values. I mean, and each of them there's a mix of multiple choice, true and false, and short answer questions in each of them.
Okay.
And the quizzes, I think the point value on this is 40 points. I'm not entirely sure. But the first one, true and false, these are pretty good or pretty easy to deal with. And there's ones that are kind of obvious, but there are other answers that are directly related to specifically to the text, and the only correct answer is from the text. And an example of that is what is a short definition of a line? And I don't think that this is on this quiz. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But the shortest definition of a line is not the distance between 2 points. It's not a point taking a walk. The shortest distance or the shortest definition of a line is a phrase that comes right out of the textbook. And and so Jason's put a couple at least 2 or 3 ringers like that in the textbooks. And like one of them is this one where it talks about French who designed this sculpture, the Lincoln Memorial, and it talks about how important the module that we're doing this in is about uh, sculpture and photography and the relationship. And so this is about French's goal in getting the lighting that he wanted for the Lincoln Memorial. And it talks about this directly in the textbook. So if you've answered anything that you found online or by Googling it or anything like that, it's not going to be correct unless it's the answer that is talked about in the textbook. And this is where the 2 extremes of material choice. If you look this up online, the answer is going to be very different than in the textbook. And the 4 degrees of 3 dimensionality, this is right out of the textbook as well. You can sometimes you can find this in Google, but it's most effective when you pull it right out of the textbook. And again, the Fulton Library has at least 6 copies, and all these quizzes are designed to be taken as open book. So, feel free to go to the library.
Is it timed?
No,
Okay.
it's if your computer screen shuts itself off after 20 minutes of no activity, then I guess it's timed. But this should not be, this is not timed, and you can take it several times. In one of my classes this morning, I just went down and it tells me how many times people have taken the quizzes. And I found that in one class, several people took the quiz 2 and 3 times, until they got the perfect score. So
Mm.
if you want to use this, since it is open book, if you want to use this as your study guide, that is perfectly fine to do.
And this one's the one that's okay to take. It's the critique tools that you're revamping, right?
What's that?
This is the quiz you're okay with us taking now. It was the tools of artistic critique that you were revamping. I just want to make
Right.
sure.
The Tools of Artistic Critique quiz, the earlier quiz, is the one I'm revamping. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, this one is good to take now.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to make sure.
no, I appreciate that. You're asking really good questions. I have had semesters where people have gotten upset that I don't teach the class like they're used to, and so everything was a challenge. Um, but what's really nice is Sharon and Jason, they realize that artists are kind of weird, so they give us a lot of flexibility. So I really appreciate that. Now, every module does not have introduction and reading. Some of them do, some of them don't. It just depends.
Okay.
And but roughly, each one is going to have the quiz. Each one is going to have a background where you have the 5 to 8 artists that kind of deal with what we're talking about, and each of them have an artist review where you write, 3 paragraphs. Sometimes it's three. Most of the time, it's 3 paragraphs. I think there's one where it's 5 paragraphs, but it relates directly to the background artist of that specific module, not from the textbook or anything. The biggest thing about the module in relationship to the textbook is the quiz, and it gives you the background information, to get you where your brain should be centered.
Okay.
So this, let's see. With this assignment, I have been getting a couple questions, and I want to clarify some things. Okay, there we go. I don't know. It just irritates me when we get these ads, but everything that you get from me is free, so deal with the ads. And then as soon as we get to buy the ads, this is one of the links that I provide in the see, in this assignment. I have 3 links here, and each of these, like this one is 6.5 minutes, 7.5 minutes, 3.5 minutes, but it just walks through how to design a house. And I do not recommend anybody to follow these things exactly, but there are some things that I want you to look at that I think are really fun. Like, for example, in this one, the person made separate window frames and then used plastic inside the window frame. And I think that's brilliant. Stuff, I want you to make this house so that there's interesting texture and it's fun to photograph. And one of the examples that I provide, somebody made a house very similar to that one that we were just looking at. And they did it like this one right here. You can see that the cardboard roof is very similar right here. The difference being on this one, they left that outer form of cardboard or the outer layer. This one, they peeled it off so it looks like corrugated tin. And I think that is just so much fun. And I want you to take something like this and adapt it to yourself. Adapt it for your own purposes. Like this one, if you want to keep the structure and you like the structure, okay, that's fine. But do something different with the pillars. do something different with this front fence. Make this very different. Like get one of those rattan chairs at DI or something that's all broken and cut the
Mhm.
rattan out of it and put that up as the fence. Make these windows with arched tops or something like that. Do something different to make it yours and apply texture to it. Leaving it in this state is not looking very good. All of everybody taking my class, you all are professional artists. Make this cool. Make it uniquely yours. And it doesn't always have to be physical texture. I mean, this one, I really love this one. This has a little bit of physical texture, but most of the texture you see is the way they applied their watercolors. So like the texture of this wall to make it look like the old stucco and wood stuff from Bavaria, most of that texture is from paint. And these windows, they used cooking parchment for the windows. And I think one of the photos that they sent in actually had a tea light inside, so you could see the light coming through the windows. And that was really cool. This is another good example where the person really played with texture. And these houses do not have to be very big. That's not what we're looking for. 6 inches, about something that would fit inside the volume of a volleyball comfortably. Uh, I like this because again, they peeled off the outside layer of cardboard, so it looks like corrugated metal, and then they painted this with acrylics and spray paint to make it look really rusty. So it looks like a very urban, rundown building. And all of these windows were cut out with black paper behind most of them, and then one sad, lonely one with a tea light behind it. But you can see the texture. There's physical texture, but they did a lot of paint. They used 3 different colors of paint to give it physical texture too. And this is one of those things that makes these it makes them fun to photograph, but it also makes them fun for other people to see. Now, this person used some of the rolling printers that you can get, or the rolling, I'm sorry, print rollers that you can get at like Michael's or Hobby Lobby to get the brick texture on. They painted the paper a little bit to make it look a little bit like grout in between the bricks, and then they used one of those print rollers to roll the bricks on with black paint. They had cut the windows out and did black paint for the windowsills and the door frame, and they had painted strips of paper for these pieces of wood. And this person also used cooking parchment for the actual window. And there's a photo of this when it's at night and they have tea lights inside. So you can see the light coming through the window. All that kind of stuff is fun. And here, the base of it, they just had an old block of styrofoam that they spray painted dark gray, and then they put some torn up felt on top of it and painted that too, splashed more paint on it, put the house on it, splashed paint on the house. I mean, they just did a lot of things to make this fun. And you can see right here that the roof itself is old woven mat out of the garbage, one of those tatami mat, placemat type things. And all that kind of stuff is just fun. And so the house, and this is the simplest one out of the whole batch. And still, this person did a lot of things to give it visual texture. And so those are the things I want people to be mindful of. This is giving me very much like 1970s, but American Gothic type vibes. I think that's really a fun one. This is one of my favorites. And they used strips of cardboard for the slats on the house. And I lived for a time in Alabama, and I came to houses that I visited houses that were very much built by the people that lived in them from stuff that they found on the side of the highway and stuff. And I saw a lot of houses that looked very much like this. Coolest one was a friend of mine who somebody had shot a hole in his wall, and so he patched it up by gluing a toilet seat to it, and he thought it was funny. His wife was appalled, but he thought it was great. So So I want you to have fun with this. You don't have to have straight lines, but you do need to demonstrate that you are aware that you are a professional artist. Here's another good example of another house. A very different. And this person shows how they made it. You don't have to be an architecture student, but this person shows. I think the reason why. Well, I'm not gonna say I think the reason why I chose this video is it shows this person's thought process as they go through the building, and I really like seeing that. I think very very well done. And then here's another simple house. And you can also find house plans on the internet pretty easily on Instagram. There's lots of different people who make these, fun little houses. But when it fails is when you only follow directions and leave it. That's it. Just you follow the directions and that's all you do. If you're going to make a house like this, which is totally fine, I want you go to the Dollar Tree, get a placemat, and cut it and use that for the roof. Then paint it with gouache, paint it with watercolor, spray paint it, add things to it. I've seen some really cool stuff where the person made a house like this, but they also made window boxes, and they went to Dollar Tree and got a bunch of doll stuff at Dollar Tree, and they had all these little plants in the window boxes. And they painted the house. They used popsicle sticks to give it siding, and they did a bunch of stuff. So do stuff for the house to make it interesting and fun looking, and that will also make it a lot more fun for you to photograph. So I say this: do not copy them, but use them for inspiration. And if you, the way that I use these is I will make the pattern the way they say. I'll draw that out, and then I'll start fiddling with it and make the sides taller or make the sides belly out a little bit or do different things to the sides, the different elements, so that it becomes uniquely mine. And changing the materials instead of cardboard and paper and or tag board, you can go and use mat board is one that you can use. You can use a cheese grater to add texture to the mat board and then paint it. You can also use things like there's corrugated plastic that you can use for the walls, or you can find scrapbook paper to make for the walls. I think one of the more fun ones I've seen is somebody made. It actually ended up being very involved because they love making gingerbread houses, but they made a gingerbread house. And not only was it a gingerbread house, but it was a gingerbread house that you could open up and see the insides, and it was incredibly cool. So please use your creativity. Like I said, all of you are professional artists. Do fun stuff. And I include this Charles Young's uh, paper home site because these are all a lot smaller than what you're going to be making, but I love the variety of what he's done. Um, this is where he's used rattan from a DI chair, Desert Industries or Goodwill chair. This one he did the same kind of thing, and you can see that texture there. Most of these are uh, color tag board that you can get at any place like FedEx or any copy place, and you can see that these are all only about 1 or 2 inches high, and you're making stuff that's about 3 or 4 times bigger than this at least. But what about doing something where you make this kind of archway so it's 6 inches high, or you make this orange building so it's like 6 inches high, or maybe this reminds you of there's a haunted school in Arkansas that you can look up online and you decide to remake the haunted school from Arkansas. Or maybe you like this design, but you want to turn it into a mortuary with a smokestack. you know, I, all of that would be really, really cool. And you can do that. And then when you photograph it in your 5 different settings, you can do so many fun things with it. So I really like this. And this website also shows some of the ads that he's done with his designs. But I mean, I think all of these are really fun. Uh, Somebody was inspired by this and made a house with one of these curving walls on it, and that ended up looking really cool. And a couple of years ago, one of the students made a house, but it was like a mushroom that you could live in. It was a mushroom shape, and they used bits of bark and leaves that they found for the shingles and the siding, and that was really very cool. So, all right, any questions about that?
No, I don't think so. I
But
just have some ideas rolling around in there. I got to decide what one I want to do.
For everybody who's doing this, we need to have as many of these done as possible on Sunday so we can talk about them. Even if you don't have all 5 photos, even if it's not completely done. Like one student that last semester, um, she was only able to get the house about halfway to where she wanted, but she did take a couple different photos and posted that just so we could talk about it in class. And somebody else did the same kind of thing, but just sending one photo because she wanted me to talk about it in the class so she would know what kinds of things to change texture wise and stuff like that and add interest to it. Because we want these to be interesting. We want these to be fun and we want these to be engaging enough that you enjoy photographing them. So that's one of the points to this exercise. And I would definitely recommend watching the Sandy Skoglund and Anzi Goldsworthy videos before designing your house, because those will give you some really fun ideas, like using Cheetos for siding and things like that. But and Slinkachu too. I would also watch Slinkachu because those three, I think that will give you a lot of really fun ideas. But just think, if I was 6 years old again, what is my dream house? And have that help inform you as you move forward. Well, that is primarily everything I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Is there, do you have any questions about the work so far or anything like that? I think,
I don't think so. I think you answered a lot of them today.
okay, good. One concern that a couple people have had is, all this stuff is due. Well, we looked at what the different icons mean, and there are assignments like you submit that you have read the syllabus, or you turn in a copy of your certificate that you did the Canvas run through. That's how a
Mhm.
lot of these assignments are. And I don't want people to feel like they're being overworked or anything like that. As long as people let me know what's going on, saying, "Hey, this first week is really overwhelming. Can I have some time?" I It doesn't bother me. And one of the reasons it doesn't bother me is all of you guys have chosen to have a really weird schedule, or you're stuck with a really weird schedule, and you have to be flexible in order to to keep going on your degree and take these online classes. So it just makes sense to me that I'm flexible too. I mean, I, that seems reasonable on both of our parts. And I'm asking you guys to do an awful lot because we're cramming quite a few of the um, department expectations into this class. But I think if you guys remain in contact with me, let me know if things start feeling a little bit overwhelming or too packed together. I can make adjustments because ultimately I want you to enjoy this experience and come out with a good experience rather than hating my guts forever and um, having a miserable time of it. So,
Okay.
so that's what my hope is.
Okay.
All righty. Well, that's all I've got today, and I just
Okay.
want to double check that I have been recording this. Yes, I have been. Good.
Okay.
Oh, that that is the most horrible feeling when I've been going, especially when I've had like 5 or 6 students talking, and I go on and on. That it just we have an absolutely amazing experience. I'm so eloquent that people are crying because they felt elevated, and then we find out that nothing was recorded.
Oh no.
I hate that. That just sucks.
That's
But
funny.
I do want everybody who watches the recording of this, please let me know if Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. is a better time. And Andrea, you said that you could make that as well.
Yeah, if you do switch it to that, in some ways it might be better for me, but I'm okay keeping this too.
Okay. All right. I want people to let me know because the other option is Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. So,
Okay.
if that's going to be better, everybody tell me and tell me as soon as you possibly can.
Okay.
There is one last thing that I mentioned it about an hour ago, but I want to mention it again. Uh, I will, as I'm going through, I will just mark some things 0 if they haven't been turned in. And it's not arbitrary. I'll go through, if it's 2 or 3 days past the due date, I'll grade everything. For attendance, if it's a day past the due date, I'll grade everything. If it hasn't been turned in, I'll put a 0 there. And that specifically, Canvas will treat that triggers Canvas to let you know that you're missing an assignment that's been graded. Just do the assignment, turn it in, and let me know.
Okay.
Um, there are 2 other things that are related to that. One is if you get a 0 and you don't understand why, double check. Half the time, it's because people turn the wrong assignment into the wrong place. Or 3 other things, and that's happened a couple times this week. Somebody will turn in like the I took the Canvas prep class. Here's my certificate. Turn that in for attendance, and they get a 0 for attendance. They just have to resubmit it in the right spot and then resubmit the attendance. Another thing is people turning in things that are handwritten. Unless I specifically say hand notes are okay, this is a university class. University classes standard is typed, and I believe that's also in the syllabus. So if you turned it in and it's a 0 and it's because you hand wrote it, just type it out and turn it in, and I'll grade it right away. And then the third is as we start submitting projects, you need to photograph them. And next week, we're going to talk about doing and making your own infinity screen in your apartment or in your home, getting access to the on-campus photo lab that's in the sculpture lab room, or doing other things like that so that you can present your project in as professional way as possible. I don't expect people to pay $250 to get their stuff professionally photographed, but sticking it in the corner of the living room floor so that you have the dark brown wood and then the white wall coming together right behind it, that's not going to work. So I made like a 30-second video just showing you how to make an infinity screen with a white sheet, setting up lights, just regular lamps around it, and then photographing it with your camera. And that works out astonishingly well and does really well for this class. So and related to that, if you turn something in and you turn in photos and you get a 0, look at it. Most likely it's because you turn it in directly from your phone. And if you have an iPhone, the camera automatically sends photos to me as an HEIC file. And my antivirus software does not allow me to see those. And that is also in the syllabus that, please don't send in the HEIC files. And the easiest way on an iPhone that I've seen that I can counteract that is I take a screenshot of the photo and then trim the edges. So, I have the photo on my phone, take a screenshot of that, and then trim the edges a bit. That actually turns it into a JPEG. And that one saved, I can submit, and that there's no problem at all. And if that's the case, I will also say, please resubmit as a JPEG or in a PDF And then as soon as I can see it and open it up, I'll get points. I'll give points. Sometimes people will send stuff in as a link to a file. That rarely works because a lot of the times when you do that, the default setting for most people's equipment is I have to give permission to see that, and that doesn't work in a classroom setting. Do the best you can to submit the actual file. If it's too big, uh, I put it through a converter to make it a smaller memory file, or insert it into a PDF and submit the PDF. But files that I have to get permission to access generally does not work. So, all right, and that's all general information for everybody watching the recording. Okay, I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. Thank you very much for being with me tonight, Andrea, and sharing your time.
Okay, have a good night.
All right, we'll see you next week.
See ya. Bye-bye.